The chair scraped violently against the studio floor. Prince Harry was walking out. Cameras still rolling, audience frozen in shock. What had Dr. Phil just said that made one of the world's most scrutinized public figures abandon a live television interview? 30 minutes earlier, this was supposed to be a gentle conversation about mental health and healing. The studio lights had dimmed softly as Harry entered, composed and ready to share his journey. Dr. Phil's trademark warmth filled the room. The audience settled in, expecting inspiration. They got something else entirely. What started as therapy became an interrogation. What began as healing became a public breakdown. And what should have been Prince Harry's most vulnerable moment became the most controversial interview of the year. Before we jump back in, comment where you're tuning in from. And if this story has touched you, make sure to subscribe because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Tonight, you're about to witness the exact moment when mental health met media manipulation, when royal composure cracked under clinical pressure, and when a conversation about healing became a battle for dignity. This is the interview that broke the internet, and maybe broke something deeper. Let's go back to where it all began. Prince Harry entered the stage with a calm, composed demeanor, dressed in a tailored suit that spoke of both formality and restraint. His face was guarded but approachable, the kind of presence that suggested readiness to engage, yet hinted at an underlying tension. The studio, usually vibrant with chatter and laughter, felt unusually subdued. Cameras adjusted, lights focused, but the air was thick with an unspoken weight. Dr. Phil rose from his chair, his trademark warmth evident as he welcomed Harry with a steady, reassuring tone. "Prince Harry, it's an honor to have you here today," he said, his voice carrying the practiced empathy that had become his hallmark. "We're here to talk about your journey, mental health, healing, and what you've learned along the way." The audience responded with polite applause, eager to witness what promised to be a sincere dialogue. Harry nodded slightly, his eyes meeting Dr. Phil's with a mixture of gratitude and cautious optimism. "Thank you, Dr. Phil. It's important to me that we talk openly about these things. There's a lot of stigma, and I hope today we can shed some light." His voice was measured, carrying the weight of someone who had lived under relentless public scrutiny, but was determined to reclaim his narrative. For the first several minutes, the conversation unfolded as expected. Dr. Phil's questions were gentle but probing, inviting Harry to share his experiences with therapy, the impact of his upbringing, and the challenges of navigating life in the spotlight. Harry spoke about the importance of mental health awareness, his efforts to break cycles of silence, and the personal growth he'd achieved through counseling and support. The atmosphere, though serious, was hopeful. The audience leaned in, absorbing Harry's words with empathy. Dr. Phil's tone encouraged openness, his body language relaxed but engaged, signaling a safe space for vulnerability. For a moment, it seemed the show would deliver exactly what it promised, a thoughtful, respectful exploration of healing. But beneath Harry's calm exterior, subtle signs of discomfort began to emerge. His hands occasionally clenched the armrest of his chair, his gaze flickered away from Dr. Phil's eyes for brief moments. The polished veneer of composure hinted at a brewing storm beneath the surface. Dr. Phil, attuned to such cues from years of clinical experience, began to shift his approach. As the conversation deepened, Dr. Phil steered the dialogue toward more specific and challenging topics. He asked about Harry's recent public behavior, the controversies surrounding his media presence, and the emotional toll of his family dynamics. The questions, while framed with care, carried an undercurrent of critique that contrasted sharply with the earlier warmth. Harry's responses grew more guarded. His voice tightened, the openness replaced by measured caution. The audience sensed the subtle shift, the atmosphere thickening with tension. Dr. Phil's probing was no longer just about understanding. It edged toward confrontation, challenging Harry's narrative and inviting him to reflect on his choices with a critical eye. The change was palpable. Where moments before there had been hope and connection, now uncertainty and unease took root. Harry's posture stiffened. The faintest furrow appeared between his brows. He nodded slowly, but no longer with the same ease, as if bracing himself for the next question. Dr. Phil paused briefly, allowing the silence to hang between them. Then, with a deliberate calmness, he asked, "Prince Harry, some have suggested that your recent actions might be hindering your own progress in healing. What do you say to those who think you might be sabotaging your well-being?" The question landed heavily in the studio. The audience shifted in their seats, the mood shifting from supportive to uneasy. Harry took a breath, eyes narrowing slightly as he considered his answer. I understand why people might see it that way, he began carefully. But healing isn't linear. It's complicated, and sometimes the path isn't clear to others. What looks like sabotage might just be part of the process I'm going through. Dr. Phil nodded, acknowledging the complexity but pressing on. That's true for many people, but it's important to recognize patterns that might be destructive rather than constructive. Are you able to see those patterns in yourself? Harry's jaw tightened, the question striking a nerve. I'm very aware of my actions, he replied, his voice firmer now. I'm doing the best I can, given the circumstances. It's not easy when your every move is scrutinized and criticized. The tension in the room thickened. Dr. Phil's follow-up was gentle but unyielding. Scrutiny can be difficult, yes, but it can also be a mirror. Sometimes, reflecting on how we respond to external pressures reveals truths we might otherwise avoid. Harry's eyes flashed with a flicker of frustration. It's not always that simple, he said quietly. There's a lot beneath the surface that people don't see. Trauma, loss, expectations. It's a lot to carry. The audience was silent now, hanging on every word, sensing the depth of Harry's struggle. Dr. Phil leaned forward slightly, his tone softening again. That's why this conversation matters. To acknowledge that burden and find ways to carry it more lightly. Harry gave a small, almost imperceptible nod, but his expression remained tense. The dialogue had shifted from hopeful sharing to a delicate dance around vulnerability and criticism. The calm professionalism of the opening moments had given way to a more charged, uncertain atmosphere. As the segment progressed, the studio felt the weight of the unspoken, a growing undercurrent of conflict beneath the surface civility. Harry was listening carefully, his calm exterior masking a simmering discomfort. Dr. Phil's questions, while insightful, were beginning to probe wounds that had not yet fully healed. The audience, too, was caught in the moment, aware that they were witnessing not just an interview, but a fragile negotiation between openness and defense, between truth and self-protection. The energy in the room was taut, the initial warmth replaced by a charged stillness, as if everyone was holding their breath, waiting to see what would come next. The atmosphere in the studio had shifted palpably since the earlier moments of tentative openness. Dr. Phil's warm demeanor now carried a sharper edge, his questions growing more direct, his tone less forgiving. The audience sat in rapt silence, sensing the tension coil tighter with every exchanged word. The conversation was no longer a gentle exploration, but a test of resolve. Dr. Phil leaned forward, locking eyes with Harry as he spoke. Prince Harry, you've been very candid about your struggles, but some would argue that your coping mechanisms are doing more harm than good. Do you think that's true? Harry's jaw tightened, a flicker of frustration crossing his features. He took a measured breath before responding. I'm aware of the mistakes I've made. Nobody's perfect. But to say I'm sabotaging myself? That feels unfair. The room seemed to constrict with the weight of unspoken accusations. Dr. Phil nodded slowly, as if acknowledging the defensiveness but unwilling to relent. It's not about blame, Harry. It's about responsibility. Sometimes, the ways we try to heal can actually deepen the wounds. Harry's eyes darkened slightly, the calm facade beginning to crack. I'm doing what I believe is right for me. It's complicated when every action is dissected in the public eye. Dr. Phil's gaze sharpened, his voice steady but insistent. That's exactly why this matters. When your actions are public, they impact not only you but those who look up to you. Are you sure they're seeing the healthiest version of yourself? Harry's breath hitched subtly, a flicker of anger surfacing. I'm not here to be anyone's role model. I'm here to be honest about my journey. If people want to judge, that's their choice. The audience shifted uncomfortably, the energy thickening. Dr. Phil's next words cut through the room with clinical precision. Honesty requires self-reflection, and self-reflection sometimes means facing uncomfortable truths. Do you think you've fully confronted your past traumas? Harry's composure wavered for a moment. His eyes darted away before returning with a sharper edge. I've confronted more than most could imagine. Public trauma isn't the same as private healing, and sometimes it feels like the world expects you to carry everything without faltering. Dr. Phil didn't flinch. It's never easy, but avoidance can stall progress. Your public persona might be a mask, a way to protect yourself from pain. But masks can also hide what needs to be addressed. The air grew heavier. Harry's voice rose slightly, tension evident. You don't get to define my pain or my process. I've been through things that would break most people. Dr. Phil's expression remained steady, unwavering in the face of Harry's rising defensiveness. I'm not here to define you. I'm here to help you see the obstacles you might be placing in your own path. Healing isn't a performance. It's a commitment to truth, even when it hurts. The room fell into a charged silence. Harry's hands clenched briefly, a subtle but unmistakable sign of inner turmoil. The viewers sensed a breaking point approaching. Then came the moment that shifted the entire dynamic. Dr. Phil leaned in, voice low but firm. Prince Harry, it seems you're reluctant to fully face the pain beneath your public image. Could it be that your persona is a shield, one that prevents you from truly healing? Harry's eyes flared with emotion, the veneer of calm shattering. That's a cruel thing to say. My persona is all I have left to protect myself and my family from relentless attacks. The audience gasped softly, the tension snapping like a taut wire. Harry's posture straightened, his voice rising with passion. You don't understand the weight of what I carry. To suggest I'm hiding behind a mask is dismissive and hurtful. Dr. Phil remained composed but unwavering. I'm trying to understand, which is why I'm asking these difficult questions. Sometimes, the hardest part of healing is admitting what we're afraid to face. Harry's frustration boiled over. I'm tired of being put under this microscope, of being told I'm not doing enough, of having my pain questioned and dissected. The exchange intensified, voices rising, emotions raw. Dr. Phil countered, It's not about judgment, Harry. It's about accountability. You have the power to choose your path, but first, you have to look honestly at where you've been. Harry's eyes glistened with unshed tears, his voice cracking slightly. Accountability feels like blame when the world never lets you forget your mistakes. The studio was engulfed in a thick silence, the audience holding its breath. Dr. Phil softened his tone, reaching out metaphorically if not physically. Healing is messy and painful, but it's necessary. The first step is to stop running from the past. Harry stood abruptly, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. His voice was strained but resolute. I'm not running. I'm surviving. And sometimes survival means pushing through pain in ways others can't see or understand. The energy in the studio was electric, the moment charged with raw vulnerability and conflict. Dr. Phil remained seated, his expression a blend of concern and professionalism. Survival is important, Harry, but so is growth. The two aren't mutually exclusive. Harry's gaze locked onto Dr. Phil's, a flicker of pain and defiance intermingling. Maybe for you, but for me, it's been a battle every day. The audience was captivated, caught between empathy and discomfort as the conversation peeled back layers of complexity. The gentle warmth of earlier exchanges had given way to a profound and difficult reckoning, a public unraveling of private struggles. As Harry turned toward the exit, the tension lingered like a charged current, leaving everyone in the room grappling with the raw honesty and unresolved conflict that had just unfolded. The moment Prince Harry rose abruptly, the studio was swallowed by a heavy silence. The scrape of his chair against the polished floor echoed sharply, cutting through the stillness like a sudden gust of wind. His face, strained and flushed with emotion, told a story that words had only begun to reveal. Without another glance, he turned toward the exit, his steps deliberate yet heavy with the weight of the confrontation. Dr. Phil sat frozen for a heartbeat, the professional veneer flickering as he processed the abrupt end to what had been a fraught dialogue. Then, with practiced calm, he addressed the stunned audience, his voice steady but underscored with genuine concern. I know this has been a difficult conversation to witness, he began, eyes scanning the faces before him. Mental health is a complex and deeply personal journey, especially under the spotlight. We must remember compassion in these moments. The audience murmured in agreement, some nodding, others visibly shaken by the intensity of the exchange. The cameras cut to a commercial break, the screen fading to black as quiet whispers filled the studio. Behind the scenes, producers scrambled to regroup, aware that the evening had veered far from the scripted path. Within hours, clips of the confrontation exploded across social media platforms. Hashtags like hashtag Harry versus Phil and hashtag mental health debate trended worldwide, igniting fierce discussions that spilled beyond the confines of entertainment news. Viewers dissected every frame, debating the merits of Dr. Phil's approach and the authenticity of Harry's responses. Supporters of Prince Harry rallied behind him, praising his courage to confront painful topics on national television, interpreting his emotional exit as a sign of genuine vulnerability. "He showed us his real self," tweeted one fan, "and that's braver than anyone giving a polished interview." Sympathy surged, casting Harry as a figure battling not just internal demons, but the relentless glare of public judgment. Conversely, critics lambasted Dr. Phil's method, accusing the host of crossing professional boundaries and applying undue pressure on a guest already navigating personal turmoil. Complaints flooded network offices and sponsor inboxes, questioning the ethics of televised therapy and the fine line between empathy and exploitation. Some advertisers paused their campaigns, wary of association with the controversy. The fallout rippled through both men's careers. Dr. Phil faced a wave of scrutiny from mental health advocates and media commentators alike. Editorials debated whether his blunt style served healing or harm, and whether the spectacle overshadowed the substance. Meanwhile, Harry's public image transformed overnight, from a royal figure under fire to a symbol of human fragility and resilience. Talk shows and news outlets dissected the episode relentlessly, pondering the implications for celebrity interviews and the responsibility of media figures in addressing mental health. The incident sparked broader conversations about how public figures manage vulnerability and the pressures of maintaining an authentic self amid relentless scrutiny. Behind the scenes, the production team grappled with the aftermath, aware that the show had become a defining moment for everyone involved. The tension between transparency and spectacle had played out in real time, leaving a legacy of questions about the intersection of mental health, media, and celebrity culture. For viewers, the episode was more than entertainment. It was a raw, unfiltered glimpse into the complexities of healing in the public eye. It challenged audiences to reconsider their expectations of public figures and the delicate balance between empathy and critique. As social media debates raged and ratings fluctuated, one thing was clear: the conversation about mental health had been irrevocably altered by this encounter. The world had witnessed not just an interview, but a profound, if painful, exchange that resonated far beyond the studio walls. The evening's events served as a stark reminder of the fragile humanity behind headlines and soundbites, leaving a lasting imprint on the public's understanding of both Prince Harry and Dr. Phil, a moment where vulnerability collided with confrontation, and where the pursuit of healing became a shared, if complicated, journey.